Fantastic. Everybody is healthy, which is a great place to start. If I had to have a little revisionist history and go back, probably not the greatest showing for us at the Pac 12 meet last week in Tucson. Both of the men and the women finished fourth there. But then on the flip side of that coin, the as always talented Edward Cheserette to win his fourth conference title. And then I think Lewis Johnson was talking about how nobody has ever done that in the Pac-12 meet on the men's side. I think there is a lady that had completed that task from Arizona. I don't remember her name, but she was from Arizona. And so that's a mouthful when you talk about all the legends and all the greats that have come through the Conference of Champions. For no one to ever do that is really, really, really huge. So kudos to Edward for being able to accomplish and pull off that task. And now we move on to the next challenge at hand, which is the regional championship in Sacramento. Of course, as any regional meet, we want to get through that unscathed and as little effort as possible, because there is a quick turnaround to go to the national meet in Terre Haute, Indiana.
What do you want to see from both teams at that regional meet that kind of gives you confidence going into the national meet?
Just the continue to work and build on the things that we've been working on all year, and which is grouping that, having that spread be really, really tight, pack running mentality, and to just go out there and have fun.
The Pac-12, do you just chalk that up to just a bad day for both teams and you just move on, or is there something out of that you want to see differently?
It just wasn't a good race. When I say a good race, not that we were totally bad. However, when you're in the Pac-12 in cross country, it's the most competitive meet in the country, and there's a lot of good teams there, both on the men and women's side. And so, when you have an off day with one or two things, it really shows up and magnifies some of your weaknesses there for us. Hopefully, as we move forward, we can continue to address some of those things and maybe looking for basically a perfect race, Chris. And when I say that, it can't be just one person perfect. It's got to be all five. And so that's kind of what we're looking for, and that's kind of maybe not hoping for so much at regionals, because of course we just want to get through that one. But definitely after that is what we're kind of leading up to.
Is that kind of the key to regionals, to just surviving and moving on, knowing that you have a bigger race a week later?
The coaching staff and the kids have done the body of work. Of course, in cross country, you got to amass a certain number of points, and then if you get a certain number of points, then you go to regionals and you get in a large bid if you're one or two. But if you have enough points, then you get one of those buys there. And so we have a good amount of points going into this meet. However, we want to continue the mentality of just having good, solid performances there.
What does it mean for the women's team to have Allie back and starting to run and really kind of get into her season?
Yeah, you see, we didn't run her at the Dillinger meet and didn't run her at pre-nationals, and so she was dealing with some little nagging things there leading up to it, and we just thought that it would be best to continue to let her train coming off the summer. And so to have her back in the lineup, of course, she's been an All-American on the track as well as indoors, and a low stick. Maybe she was our first person last year at the Pac-12 meet. So it's good to have that experience and that calming force on the girls, that she's been there, done that in that meet, and hopefully that'll continue to hold true as we move forward.
Coach, speaking of Mr. Cheserek, have you had a moment to kind of reflect on everything that he has accomplished so far, and now being in a position to do something that no one has ever done before, and just how difficult it is to get to that point?
Great question. I don't think we, as a coaching staff, you as reporters, us as a community, will really ever really realize how special that guy is until he's gone. And when I say gone, 10 years from now, 5 years from now, we'll start to be like, hey, he was pretty good. When everything starts with Edward Cheserette was such and such, and when you start talking about distance running in and starting the conversation, his name is in there. And so the longer he's removed, the bigger that legend is going to grow. And so when you say, have I had an opportunity to sit back and realize that? No, not really, because we're right here in the rat race and in the grind every day. So he's definitely a special individual, and more importantly, minus the athletic talent, him as a person. I traveled with them to Tucson, and just to see him interact and do things that you wouldn't think that the guy who just won his fourth national title. What am I talking about? We're unloading luggage there to go in there. All the kids walk in, and we're taking some rental cars back to the rental return, and there's my bags, Coach Powell's bags, the trainer's bags, the massage table. They're still left on the curb. And him and Allie Cash, and I think there was one other, while everybody had already walked in attending to their stuff, he's got 3 bags on this strap, another table on this strap, and that, this is the guy that just quote unquote completed history, but he's the one out there on the curb carrying all the extra bags. Little things like that is very humbling to see someone that could easily have the biggest head, justifiably so, on our team, that is still willing to do the grunt grass work, layman type things. Those things I think go unnoticed and are most appreciated about what we appreciate about Edward Cheserette.
You've been telling stories like that ever since you got here, though. I mean, has that always been kind of his MO?
Yeah, he was a phenom out of high school. And so certain phenoms come with a little air and a little chip on their shoulder, some rightfully and deservedly so. But to have that humbling spirit, that mindfulness to be true, be humble, to be kind, to be respectful, I think is really, really sets him apart from most. And I could probably go on a soapbox and preach about some of you millennials here that have just a different mindset. And he's a phenomenal kid.
And speaking to Ed, I get the sense, and correct me if I'm wrong, that he'd trade it all for a team championship.
Absolutely. Of course, you're in the hustle and bustle, and you cross the finish line. And hey, Coach Johnson, can we get you and Edward to make a few statements by the Pac-12 network? And I think he said just as much about how yes, he won the 4th Pac-12 title, but how great it would be for him to trade those things in for a team championship, which he has not won here on the cross-country side of things. It'd be even greater to trade that Pac-12 in for a national title as a team as well. So once again, another nugget, another example of who he is as a person. One question.
For me?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I was actually kind of curious about how hard it is and how you get the team to peak at the same time for nationals.
Coach, well, less of me and more of him, and Coach Powell, the Powell squared. It's kind of one of those things that starts at Sun River, and then over the summer, like us as coaches never really ever in this sport never really have a downtime, because one sport always blends and leads into another sport. But starts in the summer, you start logging these miles. If you talk to some of those guys, you'll hear them where they're logging 80, 90, and some of them who are the upperclassmen, 100-mile weeks or so. And that's a lot of miles to be running. They do it various different ways. And then there's a piece of it where you have to do some speed type stuff. Because you get there, you've run 7,000 meters, and now you got to pick up and sprint the last 800. So there's a speed component to that. And then the last thing is you have to taper. You have to taper for these races, and of course it can't be just you give them days off. So when I say taper, you're going to cut that mileage in half. So for easy math is you go from doing 100 miles a week to running 50 miles a week, which still sounds a lot to the common person. So those are some of the things that we use as far as peaking our athletes for the national championship.
Robert, your track schedule came out today. You know, what are your thoughts on what you guys were able to put together, you know, despite the absence of regular season home meets?
Yeah, it's tough, and I gave a spiel to some donors that are donating towards the Hayward Field renovation, about 25 to 30 of them that had donated millions of dollars for that project. And in that spiel, I asked them for their patience, and I said, Lord knows, I think we're going to need those because it's going to be a trying time for us as a program, and I'm assuming it's going to be a trying time for our fans and the Duck faithful because we're going to be absent from a place that we love and have our regular season meets, and even more so, just a place to train. And do things. We do a lot over here on this side of campus, and to be able to, or to have to go and do that elsewhere, going to be a juggling act. And so patience on their end to understand that, patience on our end to be able to find the different ways to navigate some of those things. And then I guess on the flip side of the coin is when we're done, when we're finished, we're going to have a fantastic and unique facility, one that I feel giddy about, and one that I'm going to be probably like a kid in a candy store. I just got to be able to weather that storm until we get there in 3 years.
With that said, I mean, do you like the schedule that you guys have?
Yeah, we're doing some things different. We're taking a large contingent. Of course, we always went to Mount Sac with about 8 or 9 kids. Now we're looking at taking about 40 or 50 or so to Mount Sac, so that'll be different. Same thing with the Penn Relays meet. We usually take about another 8 to 10 group, but we're going to end up probably taking about 30 or 40 to that meet. Probably one of the biggest things there, spring break. Of course, we go to spring break every year. We stay somewhere for a week, but we're going to venture a little further out away from home, and we're going to go all the way to the East Coast, to the Florida Relays, which is a huge meet there on the East Coast. So little things like that are going to be different. There's that big Stanford meet, the distance meet there, where we usually take 3 or 4 kids, where we'll probably end up taking a bigger contingent there. So things like that are different but not different. Different in the size and the number of people, but we've been there before, so to speak. So interesting to see how all of that turns out and how we handle those things.
And for cross-country people who do cross-country, indoor, outdoor, people like Edward, he got a little tired last year. How do you maintain the freshness in their legs throughout the long season?
Yeah, that's another thing that's hard for those type guys. And when I say that, cross-country, indoors and outdoors, and then Edward had the unprecedented triple that he performed indoors, and then we gave him a lot of time off heading into that, which led to him being beat a couple of times there, even here at home. So it's one of those things to where we have to be mindful of little things like that, and not to run them too hard and run them too soon. So it's just about picking and choosing your spots.